What is shame and why is shame so dangerous?
Welcome to the Lodge of Unshackled Queens.
So, Keneshia Flemmings has a wealth of experience, over 20 years as an educator. She's a member of the John Maxwell Certified Team, a speaker, coach, trainer, former guidance counselor. She has worked with students from preschool to high school, and that makes her uniquely qualified to help young people and other professionals to grow personally. She currently lives in Texas with her son, and she is, of course, Jamaican. What is shame and why is shame so dangerous?
So, Ruth, one of my favorite shame researchers and proponents is Dr. Brene Brown. And I like her definition of shame. So, she says that shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging.
Wow. Wow.
Yes.
Can you say that again?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it says that shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging.
Wow. So we know that human beings are flawed, right?
Oh,
As Christians born in sin,
absolutely.
we've
Yeah.
inherited that. But that feeling of being so flawed is painful that
Yeah.
you're unworthy of love.
Right.
So when a Jamaican, for example, think of shame, I was talking to somebody and she said, I don't struggle with shame. I struggle with anger. Me no shame. You have persons, for example, anything you say to them is like water off a duck's back. So in terms of what Brene Brown is talking about, can you explain that a little bit more in terms of how it manifests and stuff?
Absolutely. So shame, it keeps us small, it keeps us resentful, it keeps us afraid. So rather than having more openness, it makes us pull back, right? Rather than moving forward, it creates disconnection. So that anger that some persons might be talking about, that's a disconnection. So we have to break it down. Whenever an experience happens, whenever an incident happens, we experience certain emotions.
Right.
But in order to name that emotion, we have to really recognize what we're dealing with. So, why are you angry? What
Mm-hmm.
makes you angry? Right?
Okay.
What did the person say that made you angry? And so now you say you're angry. Why are you angry? Is it because, they talked about your hair, they talked about your family, they said you're not a good mother? Is it because they said they don't like your appearance? What is it? So when we break it down, behind a lot of the emotions or the feelings that we're saying, a lot of it is behind it is shame.
So it's that intense feeling. I've been doing a little research because shame has been the dominant emotion that has held me captive or prevented me from walking in my full potential.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things they said of all the stressful emotions, when they measured it in terms of cortisol level, shame
Oh, yeah.
is the strongest. Not even fear, but
Right.
shame, and
And
with
that's
it
so true.
comes a sense of unworthiness.
Mm-hmm.
But we feel embarrassed,
Mm-hmm.
and with it, like I said, that unworthiness. For me, it was this feeling that is so deep
Yeah.
that even when I read scriptures or a person said stuff, it just wasn't resonating. Is this feeling because of issues that have happened to you that you're damaged goods,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you don't have much value, and
Mm-hmm.
then what happens is that you go into this perfectionist mode trying
That's
to
it.
overcome that. And there are many reasons why people feel ashamed. So maybe we could ask persons in the chat before you get into your story, what are some of the things that make you feel ashamed? So I see one person has already commented. Okay, Patricia Fletcher is saying happy birthday and welcoming you, Keneshia.
Hi,
And she
thank
never saw the connection between shame and anger before. And so she's having an enlightening moment. She's saying,
Yes.
never saw the connection between shame and anger before, also unworthiness to be loved. So you ladies are making that for me. And that is true because I couldn't put my finger on it. I was always saying, where does this come from?
Right.
You know,
Right.
where this feeling, and it is painful when you think of certain things that have happened to you or
Yeah.
certain things that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I was ashamed of my neighborhood where I lived because when I left St. Mary and came to Kingston, we lived in the inner city,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a stigma attached to the
Oh
inner
yeah.
city. So there are
Mm-hmm.
times I didn't want to tell anybody where I lived
Yeah. Yeah. And
because
it's
of what
real.
people would say. And you know, May is also Mental Health Month,
Mm-hmm.
and shame can lead to a lot of mental health challenges. And I'll get into mine later. But what are some of the things that often causes people to feel that painful emotion of shame?
So she goes on to, Dr. Brene Brown goes on to say that we all experience shame, right? It's not a women thing, it's not a man thing, it's not a children thing. We all experience shame. That's one. The second thing is we all are afraid to talk about it, right?
Oh,
We are
yes,
all afraid to talk about it. And then the
yes.
third thing is the less we talk about it, the more we have it.
Ah, Jesus. So this, because this is the thing, this is why I am doing this. And, you know, in preparation, as I was explaining to you, I felt so nervous after I made a connection and said, I'm going to do this. Lord, I think this is what you want me to do. I felt so fearful,
That's true.
you know? So Patricia is saying she was ashamed of acknowledging her siblings sired by her father, born out of marriage.
Yeah,
And so that's a common thing when you are born out of
absolutely.
wedlock, or if you are the child of an adulterous union.
Mm-hmm. Because
That
there's so
are the
much
thing.
stigma attached to it. Like, what are they going to say about my mother? Like, something is wrong with her. Why she couldn't keep her husband, or the other family if she was on the other side. Oh, they're homeworkers or what? It varies, and that's one of the things that keeps us silent. It
Hmm.
keeps us silent. And guess what? Shame derives its power from the unspeakable,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
It derives its power from being unspeakable. Shame loves silence.
Oh, and I believe it's one of the enemy's greatest tools. So this is why, even in putting this thing together to share some of the things that I'm going to share, you know, shame will paralyze your potential.
Absolutely.
Shame
Absolutely.
is a dream killer.
Absolutely.
Shame is a
Absolutely.
destiny destroyer.
Yes. Yes. It keeps, I was sharing with you before, it keeps us small.
Yeah. And that
It,
feeling of
yeah.
being small. Now I get it. It's because of shame, because I felt so small. No
Mm-hmm.
matter the educational achievements, the different things, there is always this
Yeah.
feeling of being small
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not being good enough,
Right.
irrespective of what others say. You
Absolutely.
feel you don't belong in the room. And I
That's it.
could not understand what that was. Now I
That's
know
it.
that those are some of the signs and symptoms of shame.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then to think about it, the opposite is so true. Like a sense of worthiness, being having that feeling that you're worthy, it inspires us to be vulnerable. So it inspires us to open up, to share openly, and to persevere.
But then with that comes the fear that if I share openly and I'm vulnerable, the person might react in
Yeah,
a negative way, and then that
absolutely.
can cause shame.
So that's one of the most important things. Do not share your story with people who have not earned the right to hear your story.
Wow. Wow, that's a nugget. Don't
Yeah,
share your story with people who've not earned the right.
right.
I like that. Don't share it with people who've not earned the right, or don't share it until you feel healed. Didan was the one who introduced me to scabs and scars.
Ah,
So you must know when the scar has, when you touch it,
mm-hmm,
there's no pain,
right.
but the scab, when you pluck at it,
Mm-hmm,
then it's gonna get infected, and so sometimes you want to share, but it's a scab, and so you have to
mm-hmm.
determine who you share your scars with,
That's it.
or your scabs with.
That's it. That's it. So they have to earn the right to hear your story, and they have to be able to show empathy, because not everybody is capable, or they're in a place to show you empathy. Not
Yeah.
everybody knows how to do that. So if you know that your next door neighbor, they're harsh, and if you say, oh, this happened, well, I go out, and their stories, oh, I went through it and I'm fine. That's not a safe person. You don't share your story with persons who are not able to show you empathy.
Oh, but what about in ministry? Because you're not seeing the persons you're sharing with. And like when you come on a platform like this and you feel that God wants you to share your story, you're not seeing. So is that a general rule? Because if you get up in church, you give your testimony, and you're on internet land, you give your share, and people from around the world will respond.
Mhm.
Some are toxic. So how how does that nugget rule relate to that?
Okay, so in sharing everywhere, not just your testimony, but on like social media platforms, you have to ask yourself the question, what do I want to achieve at the end of it?
Uh,
What do I want to achieve at the end of it? Is it just me telling a story? Is it just me saying, this happened, but what do I want to achieve? Am I trying to show how God can deliver? Am I just trying to show that, I use my own strength to get over? What is the end result that I'm trying to achieve? So when you ask yourself that question, and you can answer it honestly and thoroughly, then you know whether or not if this audience is the right audience. Because even with Jesus, remember, he said the prophet is never without honor in his own country, right? Or along those lines. I might have messed it up, but if you are sharing at home, most times people don't appreciate what you have to share. People
yeah,
don't appreciate what you have to say, because they're familiar with you,
yeah.
right? So you have to know what audience you're sharing with, and you have to know what purpose am I trying to achieve.